At 15:14 on the afternoon of September 4th, a pair of Venezuelan F-16 Fighting Falcons shattered the 5,000-foot cloud layer, initiating a maneuver. Fighter pilots call a hook attack. The lead aviator inverted his aircraft and wrenched the control stick sharply rearward. His analog airspeed indicator, a component straight out of 1983, rotated swiftly past 550 knots as he aimed for the stern of the USS Jason Dunham. Simultaneously, his wingman executed a brake to the left, dropping low toward the ocean surface in a classic effort to divide the destroyer's defensive focus. The maneuver was a perfect bracket attack. 2 threats, 2 distinct vectors, 1 target. Yet the critical flaw was the age of the aggressors. These F-16 represented the pinnacle of aerial combat technology. At the time, the original Top Gun was in theaters. But this was decades later, not 1986. The destroyer's automated defenses immediately reacted. The CIWS aimed its primary white dome at the lead F-16, while the secondary mount swirled to track the wingman. The 6 barrels on each gun began their distinctive pre-spin, preparing to unleash tungsten penetrators at a rate of 4,500 rounds per minute. Deep inside the Combat Information Center, fire control specialists confirmed that both weapon mounts had achieved simultaneous, stable target locks. The destroyer's SPY radar was doing more than mere tracking. It was conducting a forensic analysis of the incoming aircraft. The radar was generating information on the jets at a rate of 30 updates per second, calculating all necessary data to ensure their swift destruction. The lead F-16 concluded its dive at 500 feet, its afterburner roaring. The pilot's thumb located the weapon selection switch for an AIM-9L Sidewinder. The missile's infrared seeker head initiated its circular search, focusing on the narrow 3 to 5 micron wavelength for a heat signature. Silence. No acoustic tone, no lock, no acquisition. The Sidewinder was hard-coded to detect the intense 1,000 degrees Celsius thermal energy and specific CO2 emission spectrum characteristic of a jet engine's exhaust. A surface combatant's stacks, however, emit at a cooler 200 degrees Celsius in the 8 to 12 micron band. The missile was fundamentally incapable of recognizing the destroyer as a viable target. Furthermore, the AIM-9L's limited 11-mile range was obsolete. Current generation F-16s carry the AIM-9X, which boasts a 22-mile range and off-bore sight targeting capability, allowing pilots to engage targets without pointing the aircraft's nose directly at them. These vintage Venezuelan aircraft, by contrast, were forced to use an attack profile straight out of the Cold War. The wingman leveled his flight at an extremely low 50 feet, the canopy quickly becoming obscured by sea spray. His radar altimeter, when it worked, was screaming warnings. The system was known to fail intermittently below 500 feet, a persistent maintenance problem since 2018 requiring parts that Venezuela could neither legally buy, steal, nor manufacture. As he pulled up from 100 feet, 3 separate radars immediately painted his jet. His AN/ALR-69 radar warning receiver illuminated, but only its forward quadrant was functional. The rear left quadrant was totally blind due to antenna connection corrosion from water ingress, and the rear right was unreliable. He was flying partially deaf against advanced radars capable of intense energy output. This scenario highlighted the disastrous mismatch, attacking an Aegis destroyer using F-16. The jets lacked targeting pods, ruling out the use of laser-guided munitions. They didn't possess any, regardless. There was no GPS integration, meaning precision weapons like JDAMS were impossible. Their 1980s mission computer was incapable of processing GPS data. A GM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missile compatibility was non-existent. They carried no HARM missiles for radar suppression. Their entire anti-ship capacity rested on guns and air-to-air missiles that couldn't lock onto a surface vessel. A modern F-16 would be armed with the AGM-158CLR-ASM, a stealthy cruise missile utilizing artificial intelligence to identify specific ships from 200 miles away. The Venezuelan aircraft were essentially attempting to sink a destroyer with weapons designed to shoot down Soviet MiGs over East Germany in 1985. The nature of the target was equally problematic. The Venezuelan pilots were attempting a perfectly executed historical anti-ship attack profile. The Argentine super etendards famously used this exact approach, low-altitude ingress, pop-up, launch, and escape, to sink the HMS Sheffield during the Falklands War. However, the Sheffield utilized a Type 965 radar that took 20 seconds for a single rotation. The Dunham's SPY radar updated 30 times per second. Sheffield had significant gaps in coverage. The Dunham possessed 4 fixed-array panels providing seamless, continuous coverage. Sheffield's Sea Dart missiles required manual guidance. The Dunham's SM-6 missiles were fire and forget with their own active seekers. It was a mismatch equivalent to deploying World War I tactics against an advanced science fiction weapon. The lead pilot tried to lock the destroyer with his APG-66 radar for a gun run. The mechanically scanned array traversed back and forth like a metronome, requiring 3 full seconds per sweep. When he switched from search to track mode, his entire air picture vanished. The vintage radar was a single tasking system. It could either search or track, not both. Contemporary F-16s are equipped with track while scan capability, allowing pilots to maintain situational awareness while engaging a target. This pilot became instantly blind the moment he attempted a hard lock. Moreover, at 200 feet altitude, the intense sea clutter overwhelmed the ancient processor. Every wave was interpreted as a mountain. The destroyer would appear and disappear like a phantom. The radar lacked a dedicated sea surface search mode or Doppler processing to filter out clutter. He was trying to manually find a 500-foot ship in a high-speed jet by fiddling with gain knobs while flying 580 knots at 500 feet in an ocean of radar noise. Completely oblivious to the engagement solutions achieved against them, the lead F-16 pulled up to 1,000 meters, abandoning his gun pass. The fuel gauge, assuming it hadn't malfunctioned again, indicated 4,200 pounds. 3 minutes of continuous afterburner use had consumed 2,400 pounds. His wingman pulled alongside, using hand signals to communicate his fuel state. 5 fingers twice, equaling 5,500 pounds. Without the Link 16 data link, a system installed on US F-16S since 2002 to create a shared real-time tactical picture, they were reduced to finger counting at 400 knots. Their formation, looking like a divorced couple at a wedding in their loose coordination, split for a second attempt. The lead jet dove toward the bow while the wingman approached the stern. Classic doctrine to divide defensive efforts and force the target to prioritize. The Aegis system, however, was not designed for prioritization. It assigned tracks to every available weapon system. The destroyer could simultaneously engage 18 targets. 2 F-16s constituted a minor exercise. With the flip of a single switch, the ship's slick 32 electronic warfare system initiated its electronic assault. The Venezuelan APG-66 radars operated on a fixed 9.3 GHz frequency band, unchanged since the early 1980s. They possessed zero-frequency agility. Modern radars hop frequencies thousands of times per second to prevent jamming. These radars were broadcasting on the same fixed channel they'd used when MTV still aired music videos. The jamming was surgical. The lead pilot's display showed 3 destroyers, then 5, then 1, then nothing. His wingman saw the single ship split into 2 phantom contacts, moving in opposite directions at impossible speeds. The lead pilot disregarded the electronic chaos and pressed his attack, diving from 3,000 feet and pushing past 550 knots. The F-16 began to shake violently, not from aerodynamic stress, but from structural fatigue. 40 years of Venezuelan maintenance, a period defined by hopeful repairs and the generous application of industrial adhesives, meant the airframe had exceeded its certified design life by 15 years. Metal fatigue was nearing a critical state. A cracking sound was heard from behind the cockpit. Hydraulic pressure began to fluctuate as fluid leaked from old seals. The 1980s analog flight control circuits, euphemistically called a computer, compensated sluggishly. Modern F-16SS feature quadruple redundant digital fly-by-wire systems. These relied on dual redundant analog systems, with redundant being a charitable description. The destroyer's crew began taking bets on which defensive layer would score the theoretical kill. The CIWS operator demonstrated an absolutely perfect firing solution, 1.3 seconds, 97 rounds, with the interception point calculated to the centimeter. The Tactical Action Officer, TAO, detailed how firing 1 megawatt of directed electromagnetic energy would instantly overload the F-16's electrical systems. The jet's generators, already running at 60% capacity, could not handle the surge. The Venezuelan pilots were unwittingly delivering a free training exercise titled How Not to Attack a Modern Warship. The F-16s executed one final, noisy pass, roaring over the destroyer at 300 feet in a line abreast formation. They accomplished nothing but acting as expensive noisemakers. The lead pilot keyed his microphone to coordinate with his wingman, using an encrypted VHF radio without any frequency hopping. They lacked advanced channels like Have Quick or SyncGARS, effectively relying on communications with less security than a consumer baby monitor. As the F-16s banked south, their fuel gauges flashed bingo. The American intelligence team meticulously cataloged every emission, every frequency signature, and every tactical blunder. The certainty was that President Maduro would order them back the next day to be more aggressive. Tomorrow, the Americans would stop observing and begin to actively play. At 14:30 on September 5th, the same two exhausted pilots were strapped back into the same worn-out F-16. Their night had been filled with dressing downs from commanders who in turn had been berated by Maduro. The orders were unambiguous. Force a reaction. Provide footage for state television. The pilots performed pre-flight checks on aircraft that should have been permanently grounded. The lead jet's inertial navigation system, INS, showed their location as 20 miles from their actual position. Drift accumulated since the last calibration in 2006. Again, no GPS integration because the 1983 mission computer had less processing capability than a basic household microwave. The wingman's radar warning receiver was completely dead in 2 quadrants, and his artificial horizon would freeze randomly for 2 to 3 seconds. They were piloting museum artifacts into a confrontation they had already lost. This time, they opted for the high-low split, a core anti-ship doctrine from a time when surface warships still had predictable blind spots. As the lead F-16 climbed through 10,000 feet, his engine suffered a severe compressor stall. A sound like a shotgun blast erupted from the cockpit. He immediately pushed the nose down to reduce the angle of attack, and the engine hesitantly recovered. The F-100 PW-200 engine required an overhaul every 4,000 flight hours. This one likely had 6,800 hours. Compressor blades were cracked from stress fatigue. Any sustained high-G maneuvering would trigger another stall. He was flying a fighter aircraft that was incapable of fighting. The destroyer had anticipated their arrival from the moment the engine spooled up. An E-2D Hawkeye surveillance aircraft had detected their takeoff from 200 miles away. The SPY radar acquired the jets at 180 miles. Every American intelligence asset was watching. A Virginia-class submarine recorded their communications through a photonic mast. An MQ-4C Triton high-altitude drone streamed 4K infrared video directly to the Pentagon. The Venezuelan pilots were freely donating their tactical intelligence. The lead pilot rolled inverted at 12,000 feet and pulled into a steep 60-degree dive, a trajectory steeper and less controlled than trained. Without a targeting pod, he had to aim using a fixed reticle on his head-up display, technology from the dawn of the electronic age. This pilot was reduced to guessing impact points using fire control math derived from the Vietnam era. And as before, he had no bombs, no racks to carry them, and no computers to calculate a release solution. The wingman was skimming the waves at 50 feet, forced to trust his faulty radar altimeter. Salt spray permeated the degraded canopy seal, infiltrating electrical systems. His APG-66 radar showed nothing but an overwhelming mass of clutter. Without a sea surface search mode, the radar could not distinguish between a wave crest and a 500-foot destroyer. This pilot was effectively flying blind, praying his obsolete INS was approximately correct. Neither pilot realized the destroyer was actively manipulating their sensors. The Slick 32 was injecting phantom contacts into their radar screens, ships multiplying, vanishing, and reappearing. Lacking frequency-agile radars or operational electronic countermeasures, they were completely defenseless. The lead pilot's radar showed the destroyer 30 degrees left of its true position. He was diving toward empty sea. The wingman saw 3 destroyers, then 2, then 5. The destroyer had effectively turned their sensor displays into kaleidoscopes. These Venezuelan jets were powerless against electronic warfare that hadn't even been conceived when they were built. At 3,000 feet, the visual picture failed to match the radar. The destroyer was 500 meters to the right of the APG-66's claim. The pilot violently jerked the stick right, enduring 5 Gs in the rolling correction. His G-suit, which had been leaking since 2019, could not maintain adequate pressure. The overstressed airframe groaned loudly. A sound like tearing paper emanated from the left wing root. Hydraulic pressure dropped 20%. He considered punching out, but his ejection seat rockets had expired in 2018. The parachute hadn't been repacked since 2009, and the seat was secured by bolts scavenged from a scrapped F-5. He pulled out at 800 feet, preparing for one more attempt. The wingman climbed to 5,000 feet for a final slashing attack at 1447. As he rolled in, the destroyer's CIWS mounts elevated their barrels, not to fire, but to make an unequivocal point. The 6 barrels spun up to maximum velocity, emitting the distinctive menacing buzzsaw whine. The fire control radar locked him with tracking data so precise it could theoretically predict which rivet would fail first on his airframe. But the CIWS didn't need to fire. Venezuelan maintenance had already accomplished the mission. The port generator was supplying only 60% power via a voltage regulator cannibalized from another F-16. Circuit boards throughout the aircraft were held together by shaky solder and sheer luck. Wiring insulation was so degraded that systems were shorting out randomly. He was piloting a machine that was a synchronized collection of failures waiting to cascade. Diving through 3,000 feet, his cockpit erupted in alarms. The SPY radar had switched to track mode, focusing 6 megawatts of electromagnetic energy on his jet. His few working radar warning receiver components screamed a warning, but could not identify the emitter. Lacking software updates since 2006, it didn't recognize modern radar signatures. It was screaming about threats it couldn't name, from directions it couldn't isolate, at power levels that defied logic. The electromagnetic interference was so intense that his artificial horizon tumbled. His radar compass spun like a slot machine, and his fuel gauge flickered wildly. The pilot pulled out at 500 feet, the G-meter pegged at 7.5. Due to the leaking G-suit, his vision immediately tunneled to a straw. For 2 critical seconds, he was unconscious, his wounded F-16 barely maintaining stability above the waves at 400 knots. He regained consciousness at 1,500 feet, disoriented and tasting blood. The lead pilot made his final run at 1449, pushing his failing F-16 into maximum afterburner. Accelerating through 500 knots, the damaged compressor stalled again. This time, it did not recover. The engine was finished. 6,800 flight hours had finally exacted their toll. The F-16 yawed violently right due to the asymmetric thrust. He pulled the throttle to idle, desperately trying to trade speed for control. He was now approaching a destroyer at 300 knots in a crippled jet, with perhaps 5 minutes of total flight time remaining. The destroyer's TAO watched the thermal display, which showed the F-16's engine running 200 degrees above operating limits. The aircraft was literally consuming itself. The CIWS tracked the jet, maintaining professional discipline. At 2,000 meters, the fire control solution was flawless. The operator's finger hovered over the engage button. A single twitch and the Venezuelan F-16 would have been instantly reduced to a fine aluminum cloud. Both F-16s formed up for the long flight home. They had consumed 14,000 pounds of fuel, their entire monthly allocation, accomplishing nothing more than offering a spectacular, if tragic, comedy of errors. The destroyer maintained its course toward Colombia, its crew already putting the incident behind them. As they crossed into Venezuelan airspace, the lead pilot's engine finally died. He managed to execute a dangerous dead stick landing at Barcelona Airport. The wingman landed with only 300 pounds of fuel, about 90 seconds of flight time remaining. The final U.S. response was the previously scheduled deployment of 10 F-35 Lightning IIs to Puerto Rico. The timing was perfectly symbolic. Pitting the F-35 against the Venezuelan F-16 was not a competition. It was akin to racing a Formula One car against a shopping cart, missing 2 wheels. Hit like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more military events.